Okay, today's video, we're gonna talk about why raising your spend/budget on Google Ads too quickly will mean actually getting really piss poor traffic out of Google Ads because you raised your budget too quickly. And too quickly means maybe even raising it from 100 to 150 a day overnight. Overnight, also get the quality of the traffic you're getting to your site, meaning site that traffic that either converts or doesn't convert can cut in half just simply by making this change, or at least down to a third. The reason for this is because Google has an ad rank system set up, and you're only eligible for so much good quality traffic at any given point. And if you raise your budget up high, thinking whatever performance you have today is what you'll get later with the increase in budget, that's not necessarily the case, because you have to earn your way into additional impressions that actually convert. Very few people understand how this system works, given they think a click is just a click. You either bid on red shoes and you show up or you don't, and that's it. And really, it's completely opposite from that. You either show up for people that are going to buy or don't buy on that keyword based upon your ad rank. Okay, so I'm going to go over all the details of this and how you can actually sustainably scale a campaign so you don't ever have to deal with suddenly your traffic not converting or you get poor quality leads because you raised your budget too quickly and you just get your nice steady rise to the top. So I'm going to cover all that and more on today's video. And of course, how much more money you can make short term because you did not go too quickly with your budget increases. I'll talk about that. Stay to the end of the video as well. Before I get into the content, if you do not know who I am yet, I am Corey Simon, owner of Guaranteed PPC, an online advertising agency that specializes in guaranteeing results for their clients. That is, we do not charge our clients management fees until we can get them a certain minimum lift in the profitability up front, basically in excess of what the management fee is, which we're the only agency out there in the public doing this, which should tell you something about the quality of the information you're receiving on today's video. So with that said, getting into the content here as promised. Now, I only raise my campaign's budget when Google recommends it, okay? So if you go to the campaigns menu on your account and there's the status column, your status column is gonna say whether Google recommends you to have a higher budget or not. And if Google recommends you to have a more higher budget on a particular campaign or on a campaign by campaign basis, they'll say, raise your budget to this. You'll get the warning or status limited by budget. Limited by budget just simply means your ads are only running part of the day, for the most part. Now there's some exceptions to that, which is why I'm making this exact video here today for you. But generally speaking, I don't raise my budget on my campaigns because I know if I raise my budget, it's not going to get me more impressions that I want. I'm going to wait for Google's system to recognize there's more impressions that will convert at a similar rate as the clicks before we're getting or clicks up to now we're getting. And then I'll go with Google's recommendation. As long as they're not recommending that I raise my budget too high percentage-wise compared to where it is right now, because if I do that, will hit the fan. How much more is the amount that you can increase your budget before your quality of traffic goes down, aka shit hitting the fan? That cutoff point is about a 50% increase in budget. So if you're at 100 a day and it says you can go to 280 a day, don't do it because your quality of your traffic is going to go down at least short term. Now the upside to it, if you do that is eventually Google will catch its bearings. It'll find you conversions at the cost per conversion you want, and you'll get the ROI that you want, but not before getting a really ROI for quite a while before the algorithm catches up in figuring out A, how to get you the customers, / B, raising your ad rank enough that puts you in position to get more impressions from people that are likely to convert. Because Google actually tries to promote the advertisers that have the best click-through rate and the best conversion rates, because that gets people to want to click on ads in the future because it gives users the best experience. In their world, ideally, they'd only show the ads that give people a good experience, and the people who don't, they price out of the market, and that's it. And there's 4 ads at the top of Google, and there's, in a competitive market, 15 people cycling in and out of those 4 spots. Whether you get shown for a person that's highly likely to convert or not depends on your ad rank, and your ad rank depends on your click-through rate and your conversion rate. Mostly. Secondarily to that, your bidding, but more importantly is your click-through rate and your conversion rate as to whether you get shown for that home run prospect that's coming through Google that's highly likely to convert and be worth a lot of money. They give those good people to the people that they want to stick around. They're good advertisers. So with all that said, if you raise your budget, getting back to specifically what I'm talking about here, more than 50% at a time, so 50, if you're going from 50 to more than 75, or 1,000 going more than 1,500. And safer would be not a 50% increase, but actually doing more so like a 15 to a 30% increase. If you want to be ultra careful, no more than 15% increases in budget at a time. Now, obviously, if you're starting out with $2 a day budget, then you can't do that. But when you get in terms of higher numbers, 1,000 a day, 5,000 a day, you only want to increase 15% at a time, because the algorithm can't catch up in terms of finding you new customers like you would or should. The algorithm's not really perfect at lining up one-to-one that increase in budget to the exact same quality of traffic you had before sometimes. And it can do it on a small scale basis, but once you start having big jumps in spend, it seems to not be able to do it as well. To put this in better frame of reference, Google does this as there's a mismatch between your ad rank and the amount of impressions you're asking for at the time. So specifically, what happens is if you had a lucky streak with your ads recently, let's say normally May is your best month, right? And all of a sudden, because May's hitting and you're doing a home improvement service, and this is when everybody does their home improvement, all of a sudden in 1 week, you get 10 conversions a day, whereas before you're only getting like 3. What happens is this limited by budget algorithm that Google has, it's gonna say, oh wow, there's 3 times as much demand here. So you should raise your budget by 3x, will increase your bids, and then therefore you'll be able to show up 3 times as much as you were before at the top of Google, whereas we were showing some of your competitors, but we'll push them out of the way for you. And you'll just get 3 times as many conversions at the cost per conversion you want, and you'll be happy. The reality is you only got that increase in conversions in May because normally May, there's a huge jump in conversions that happens. The system's not smart enough to realize seasonal trends. So Google says instead of spending 30 a day, you can spend 300 a day. If you increase it to 300 a day, or let's say 100 a day in this case, then maybe it'll find you the additional conversions. Or maybe you just got that increase because the beginning of May is always hot, and then towards the end of the month, it cools off again. So in other words, it's going to have a false assumption about what's out there in the market to get, because there's a short period of time where there was more demand. And for that matter, frankly, irritates me a little bit. A lot of people think when their ads are running good, they're running hot, they're getting a lot of conversions, that this is the way that it is normal now and it's always going to be that way. And really, your performance on Google Ads is going to be up and down, and you got to roll with the punches. And you got to be able to not panic when it's bad, and you got to keep yourself in check and not go crazy with your spend when it's better than average. Because likely what happened was, because there's not an even amount of people looking for, let's say, baseball bats every day of the month or every day of the year, it comes in bunches. One day there's 50, and then another day it might be 10. And a big chunk of people all of a sudden randomly buy all at once. Google could get confused thinking there's more demand than there is, when really it was just a fluke. It recommends you to increase your budget. It was a fluke. Now your budget's going to be higher to go after this so-called additional business that's out there to get. There is no business. So what does Google do at that point in time? They fill in the gap of clicks for impressions out there in searches that you shouldn't get in front of and that you weren't getting in front of before. Why is it that Google, when they thought there was 3 times as much demand as there was, and then you bid higher, 3 times as high to get it all, and then the demand wasn't there anymore, it was never going to be there long term, why Google doesn't just back off your budget, not spend the 3x increase in budget you did, and just spend what you were spending before? Why did they not do that versus start giving you a bunch of traffic? That I do not know. I don't know. Google, if you have your engineers watching this at any point in the future, once this channel's blown up and we're getting hundreds of thousands of subscribers, which is going to happen, then why do you do it that way? Because all you're ended up doing is just pissing off your advertisers, and they're not going to want to do it increase in budget in the future when you recommend it. They're going to say, oh, the last time you recommended me increase in budget, all of a sudden all of our calls went haywire. And that's what happens. You'll start getting calls, assuming you get calls. I want to buy a baseball bat repair kit, and you sell baseball bats. And it's because they switch up where your ad's actually showing up for to make up for the increase in spend that it isn't able to spend that it thought it could spend, but there's no more demand and just fills in the gaps. With that said, the safe thing to do is to just raise your budget in smaller increments. The smaller, the better. Because what will happen then is Google will take the small spend and you'll be able to see you get there's additional business there to get at the same cost per conversion. And if you get it, then you can do it again. And versus doing it all at once, if Google's recommending you can go from 30 a day to 150 a day, you go to 45 a day, and see if the conversions hold and your cost per conversion holds where it was, then you can easily come back later and instead of doing 55, you can do now 60 and then walk it up one step at a time, space 2 to 3 weeks apart, which is about what I do it. And you're never going to have the issue where it's like, oh, the sales aren't there. Let's fill it, this guy's campaign budget with traffic now. I've made the mistake plenty of times where it said go to 150 a day in that scenario. I do it and then they get the junk traffic, which is why I'm making this video for you here. Ultimately, like I said, it's all kind of relative because when you have smaller budgets, you can actually increase the budget percentage-wise much more than when you have a high budget already because volumetrically wise, there's more clicks for it to make up and find when you go from 1,000 to 1,500 versus 3 to 15 a day. It has to find more customers in the 1,000 to 1,500, which is a 50% increase versus 3 to 15, which is a 500% increase. Generally speaking, on like e-commerce accounts, I will not do more than a 15% increase in daily budget on the campaigns, even if Google is saying we can increase way more, because I just understand, first of all, harder for Google to find customers in an e-commerce business. It can find leads a lot easier than it can find customers. It will always take the algorithm probably time to figure out how to find the customers. And knowing that the system's inclined to see if you get a bunch of sales coming in all at once, it's going to recommend a much higher increase than you should. I always am going to play it safe. And then especially if the ad performance, like I was mentioning, is really good all of a sudden, I'm really going to be conservative on the budget increase that I'm doing. And even though it says I can do a lot more, I'm only going to stick with a 15% increase. If I'm doing lead generation accounts, I'll usually do a 50% budget increase if it says I can do one, as long as we're talking about a campaign that's fairly new. But even then though, just a 50% increase, we can get screwed up. We had an insurance client recently, started promoting a brand new kind of insurance. The campaign was going great at $15 a day. Switched it to $50 a day. The performance of the campaign went completely in the crapper. And if you went to go look at the search terms report, you saw the ads were showing up for a bunch of weird shit it wasn't supposed to show up before. So then what did I have to do? I had to go, we usually will run phrase match and exact match in every ad group with our single keyword ad groups that we run. And I got to shut off phrase match just so that it'll try to spend more money, because $15 a day ain't going to do much for us. It's a big company and that's not enough leads. But at least then when it tries to push additional spend, it's not going to run off the rails and start showing up for all this. Weirdly enough, just like I said, even though the phrase match keywords are before, it wasn't running, like this is liability insurance. It wasn't showing up for people typing in like, competitor names and people typing in like, what is liability insurance? But it did once we raised the budget without any other changes to the campaign, which is the entire reason why I'm making this video for you here. So the smart thing for me to do, even though it was tempting because $15 a day is nothing in the grand scheme of things, to go from 15 a day to 20 and then 25, so that the algorithm didn't go off the rails for us and actually just sustainably increase the impressions that we were getting, namely by getting us a higher search impression share and showing up a higher percentage of the time for the searches we were already showing up for, or make our ad bigger, or that the ad would show up higher in the list, which gets us higher click-through rate and more clicks, versus showing up for more searches, which is the last thing it should always do. It should always try to get you more clicks from the same searches that are already working than additional searches, because that's always an unknown, whether it will work, whether it would not work. That takes trial and error. Why would you do the trial and error first? With that said, by the way, there's a lot of little got-yas with Google ads, as well as running ads on Facebook and all the rest of it. I spend 40 hours a week doing ad strategy at our firm on about 50 or so different ad accounts as my sole job. That's what my sole job is. I spend my weekends sharing exactly what I find out, what works and what doesn't work on these accounts, to help people make millions of dollars a year running ads for their own businesses that want to learn. Therefore, with that said, this is the best information I promise you can find online about how to do that. Therefore, you should subscribe, or seriously consider subscribing if you haven't already. The information you get on other channels and online, it's from people who don't spend 40 hours a week doing ad strategy like I do. They talk about, ads, and they're not really running ads. And it's basically, you should subscribe already if you're serious about making money with ads. Furthermore, you should check out my blog. You can find my blog at guaranteedppc.com/blog. The blog has even better, more detailed information laid out for you to learn how to actually make millions running ads for your business with screenshots, with everything you need to use these strategies we're literally using to guarantee results for our clients is there. So if you really like the channel already, you should check that blog out as well. With that said, okay, now to summarize this, the safe thing to do is more than a 50% increase in ad budget at any given time, even if the campaign's saying it's limited by budget. On top of that, there's no point in increasing your ad budget unless your campaign says limited by budget, because it probably won't spend anymore. But even if it does, it's certainly probably going to spend it in all the wrong places. That is wrong searches that you shouldn't be showing up for. And the same thing goes with display campaigns, by the way. It works the same way. You get a few conversions, Google's going to go crazy and say, hey, you should spend 300 a day. You're spending 30 now, you should spend 300. And if you do that, it's going to show up in a bunch of places that it doesn't know for sure that is going to convert versus more times in the places that are already converting. And then your cost per conversion is going to go way up while it figures out how to spend that money efficiently. So, and then with that said, depending on how far up the spectrum you are in terms of your daily spend, if you're in the hundreds a day, 3 digits a day, 4 digits a day, 5 digits a day, you should be more and more careful doing your budget increases as you get higher and higher up in the spectrum, because percentage-wise or volumetric-wise, you're going to be asking the algorithm to find you more spots to run your ads with a larger percentage increase, but on a smaller spend. And with that said, if you're always not sure, you can always reach out to me through the comment section. I get back to every single person who leaves me a question or comment on this channel. Or you can reach out to me at my firm and we can set up a coaching call. In 30 minutes, I can tell you what to do, how not to screw up your campaigns. It's better to ask before your campaigns go off at the rails, because if your campaigns go back into learning mode, it'll take weeks to put them back on track. One of the most common things I get at our firm in terms of people reaching out now from this channel is, I tried to do this change. I did too big of a change at once. The ad performance went down to less than half of what it was. What should I do? And generally speaking, I have to just tell them, you're going to have to reverse what you did and you're just going to have to wait it out, because there's no way to get things to go unlearning mode on the campaigns again, which is why you always got to, like they say in carpentry, you measure twice, you cut once, you plan twice, and you make one change only after you're absolutely sure you should make it, not just be willy-nilly change. Does this work? Oh, well, let's try this, huh? Which is what amateurs do. But if you want to know for sure, you can reach out and get a coaching call. I can tell you how to get unstuck on your revenue. If you're stuck where you're at, I can review your website, your pricing strategy, all of it, like I do with our various clients at our firm, and tell you how to get unstuck. We could talk about potentially working together long-term as well. As mentioned, we have a guaranteed PPC service where we manage ads for our clients. We can manage your own ads, tell you what you're going to get as far as results up front, like other firms don't do, and then make sure that you get it before we start charging our fee. It's our signature offer. If you're interested in that, reach out to me and I'd be happy to talk to you about that. Similar to that, we also sell ad templates. If you want to actually get great results in your market, we can sell you the ads, the exact ads, landing pages, and campaign templates that work for your niche market. So you could copy paste those into your ad account and get the same results that we were getting in your market in a different geographic area. There's we sold printer toner before as one example. We've sold it in the US. You could take that template, you could copy paste it into an account to sell printer toner in UK and have a turnkey business essentially already with it, because the same stuff that works in one country or one area works in another. And we've had people do that. We have e-commerce templates. We got lead generation campaign templates. We got people using the templates to sell leads, using the templates to do drop shipping businesses. With that said, if you're interested in that, also let me know. We've got templates in over 100 different niche markets at this time, because we've been in business over a decade now, and we've worked on hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of campaigns and hundreds of niches as a result. So the chances are high we've already got the results you're looking for, and can tell you at least what the results were we were receiving, so you would know what you stand to gain from it. So you can also reach out to me at my firm at Guaranteed PPC if you're interested in that as well. With all that said, okay, I summed up what you need to do here. Ultimately, the name of the game with Google Ads anymore, given how freaking sensitive it is, you can freaking breathe on a campaign and set it off into learning mode anymore. That you be ultra careful with any changes you're making, and smaller changes are less likely to send the campaigns into learning mode where the campaign traffic quality you get goes completely off the freaking rails. The bigger the change, the more likely campaigns will go back into learning mode. When you're relying on the revenue that your Google Ads account brings in because you don't have other traffic sources, which is a big mistake, by the way, because Google Ads can fluctuate so much with changes that they made and have made over the last 10 plus years. You never really know. You should be ultra careful and make smaller changes versus bigger changes. And anytime you can make a smaller change, it's better. Even though I get it, you make smaller changes, it's going to take 5 times as long to get done what you need to get done. And that's a lost opportunity. But if you send your campaigns back into learning mode and you can't take a 20, 30% hit in your results for 2 weeks while the campaigns are in learning mode again, then don't make that big of a change. Make the change you want to make in 3 parts. 15, 15, 15 versus 50 all at once. With that said, I'm going to wrap it up with that. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.
Remember when I said limited by budget was important during this video? Well, this video here tells you how to do it.